Oh, 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 oh.
The town of Salem on an inlet of the Massachusetts Bay was settled in 1626 by Roger Conan. Salem was a prosperous trading center, and shortly after its settlement, Salem Village was developed to provide food for the growing town. Puritan ideas quickly prevailed, and in 1689 a Puritan church in Salem Village was created with Samuel Parris as the pastor. A deeply religious, fearful, and intolerant man, Parris had an angry temperament and greedy nature which earned him many enemies within the village. Parris, like many of the Puritans, possessed a religious mindset which allowed the fear of witchcraft to spread throughout the village. The Puritans believed that God and the devil existed both spiritually and physically, in human-like forms. With the devil as a physical presence, the Puritans were very opposed to outsiders and dissenters. They strongly believed in punishment and especially public embarrassment for any and all crimes. These attitudes created an atmosphere of fearful distrust, which allowed the witch trials to flourish. In early 1692, Betty Parris, Samuel Parris's daughter, and Abigail Parris, Samuel Parris's niece, met with one or two neighborhood friends in a meeting that marked the beginning of the Salem witch hunt. All Puritans at this time were bound by strict regulations and moral expectations. For women and girls, these regulations made for a dreary and unrewarding existence, which prohibited them from any form of self-expression or emotional release, as such things would have been regarded as evil. Bored and looking for a source of excitement, the girls began practicing prohibited fortune-telling rituals. Seated together, the girls would drop egg whites in a glass and predict what lay in store for them based on the shapes that formed in the water. These prohibited activities, which seemed to be the devil's work, sparked great fear and hysteria in the girls. Abigail Parris died shortly after of a diabolical molestation, and after her death the other girls began experiencing fits of hysteria. Beginning with agitated, unruly behavior, the fits quickly escalated to limb contortions, fainting, screaming, biting, picking, paralysis, hemorrhaging from the eyes and mouth, and hallucinations. Recent investigations suggest that the freakish disturbances which set off the witch trials may have been caused by an insect-borne illness known as encephalitis lethargica, or the sleepy sickness. In any case, it was during these hallucinations that the girls had visions of familiar women pinching them or urging them to sign the devil's book. With very little medical knowledge, the village doctor, William Griggs, turned to a religious explanation, assuming that the fits must be caused by demonic possession. First accused of witchcraft was the Parris' West Indian maid Tituba. The Puritans were already deeply suspicious and prejudiced toward Indians, and Tituba was quickly given an arrest warrant along with Sarah Osborne, a bedridden and senile woman, and Sarah Good, a beggar. Sarah Good's 4-year-old daughter Dorcas would also be in prison later that year. The first trials took place in the Salem Village Meeting House. John Haythorne was the magistrate who carried out the trials, which really resembled unjust examinations. Lacking any judicial experience, Haythorne's court was chaotic, as the accused had no defense and the proceedings were constantly interrupted by the fits of the accusers, who shrieked that the women on trial were biting them and pinching them. The circumstances of the trials were distressing enough to force the accused witches to give in to the accusations. Motivated by the same pent-up emotion and fear of the unknown that the accusers felt, some women on trial admitted to their private fears and imaginings of seeing the black man in the woods and signing their names in blood in his book. In some cases, admitting to these experiences was less disastrous than lying about witchcraft completely. Tituba, who was the first to admit conspiring with the devil, was released from prison at the end of the trials, yet others who remained defiant were executed. Throughout the spring of 1692, over 200 women and several men were tried for witchcraft and sent to prison. The crisis, which began with the private imaginings of several young girls, quickly spread throughout Salem Village and into other counties. The fits became very protracted and theatrical, and many people attended the trials to witness for themselves the horrific displays of witchcraft. The witch trials initially targeted outsiders and lowly community members, but as the crisis escalated, people turned on their neighbors, accusing those they held grudges against of witchcraft in an attempt to protect their own lives and reputations. On May 27, 1692, Salem Governor William Phips created the Special Court of Oyer and Terminer to carry out the trials. Bridget Bishop, an old and stubborn woman, was tried here and consequently became the first person to be hanged on Gallows Hill. The trial of Martha Corey, a loyal member of the Salem Village Church, marked a turning point in the trials. If a devout woman such as Corey could be accused and hanged, people realized that anyone could. Corey's husband Giles was also accused. On September 19th, he was the first of the accused to be pressed to death between two stones, dying 2 days later. Over time, as the witch trials ravaged the town and took the lives of several notoriously good citizens, people began to doubt that the girls were actually bewitched. The end of the trials came with a plea by Cotton Mather and his son Increase against the use of spectral evidence in the courts, such as dreams or hallucinations. Governor Phipps of Salem responded by outlawing spectral evidence, prohibiting future arrests, and pardoning, in May of 1693, all those who were still on trial. In 1702, the trials were claimed to be unlawful by the General Court, and in 1711 the families of the accused witches were given £600 in compensation by the colony. Finally, in 1957, the state of Massachusetts formally apologized for the trials. Despite the attempts to remedy this heinous outbreak of accusation, the Salem Witch Trials are an alarming testament to the power of religious belief and public fear. They represent a time in America's history in which personal misconceptions led people to question and often to die for their own sanity.